Good evening, Guardians. My name is the Black Link, and today is Thursday, January 23rd, 2020. You know what that means? It is time for another issue of the Bungie Weekly Blog, This Week at Bungie. Now, we've already had a heck of a week or two here in the world of Destiny 2. Of course, the Corridors of Time quest went live last week. It was solved over the weekend, and this week we got our hands on the exotic fusion rifle Bastion. Review video up on the channel if you haven't seen it yet. It's a pretty interesting gun. And of course, the questline and that specific reward have been a major topic of conversation in the community ever since. And we get to see a lot of that reflected in this week's TWAB. Indeed, we actually get to learn a bit more about the insane puzzle that Bungie's dev team put together to make all of this happen. And in particular, we hear from the Destiny 2 dev team about their inspirations for the Corridors of Time, their motivations behind it, and what they were trying to go for here. And I wanted to take a little bit of time to read through exactly what the Destiny dev team had to say. So we'll be going through that here. With the puzzle solved and the Corridors of Time closing next week, we wanted to take a moment to talk about our goals and early designs for this puzzle. When we started planning the puzzle, we created a few goals to guide our development. Create a time maze through which any player can dive to discover secrets and lore, serve as a shared community puzzle that rewards the exotic fusion rifle, and celebrate community achievement and invite all players to partake in the reward. With these goals in mind, we took inspiration from multiple sources in creating the early designs for the puzzle. The bones originated several years ago with the discovery of the sleeper simulant and the ensuing quest to unlock it. At the time, we recognized that the moment of discovery was reserved for the few people that happened to be online at the time when that hidden content unlocked. Similarly, the secret missions for the Whisper and 0 Hour were also moments of discovery reserved for the few people online within a limited time window to experience first. By contrast, this puzzle was meant to be experienced by everybody who wanted to be included. As is tradition at Bungie during our annual studio pentathlon, which was held last Friday, many of us spend the entire day solving puzzles crafted by some of our brightest minds. This always culminates in a meta puzzle that cannot be solved without the contribution of all the smaller solutions. Similarly, the Corridors of Time puzzle was designed from the start to be very simple in nature, but also require that all of the little bits come together in harmony before revealing its solution. The delivery of this puzzle came together as the team began exploring the concept and narrative for Season of Dawn. The puzzle seemed to fit with the idea of the Corridors of Time, with players meandering and weaving through time to find a very specific reality. The early ideas for this space were roughly based on the ideas of the cult classic movie Cube, where you would leave one door and end up in another identical room with a new death trap waiting for you. As always, our artists delivered a mind-bending and stunning visual language that simply brought the whole experience together into something that inspires the imagination. Much like other classic movies such as Alice in Wonderland or The Matrix, this space and the way it was connected together was done so to invoke questions like, just how deep does this rabbit hole go? Can you just keep going on forever? And is there even an end to this? Again, we want to thank everyone who participated in this puzzle or cheered from the sidelines. We're actively monitoring and collecting your feedback, from the puzzle itself to the rewards contained, to inform how we build experiences like this again in the future. And there we go. That is the motivation and the idea and the spirit behind the Corridors of Time puzzle. And to be perfectly honest, I'm really glad they took the time to kind of explain it here. I can see what they're talking about. I didn't realize that Bungie did this pentathlon where they solve puzzles every single year, but it's a really neat idea that they have a bunch of different simple puzzles to solve, and that the solutions from those puzzles come together to create a much larger puzzle. We saw just how large those puzzles could get with the Corridors of Time, and I'd say, at least in that regard, they knocked it out of the park. This was a really fun, really cool little event. Now, whether or not people are happy that, the reward was actually, I guess you could say, somewhat spoiled by the timeline showing that Bastion is a coming exotic. Maybe they should have kept that bit hidden. I don't know. But I think as a community puzzle, a community event, this thing was mind-blowingly cool. And so it was really cool to see exactly how they came up with this behind the scenes. But alright, let's move on from there. Next up, we have got some patch notes as well as some performance updates coming to the game. First things first, we're getting a sneak peek at some performance updates that are going to be dropping with Destiny 2 Update 2.7.1, including improving some performance issues in the Chamber of Suffering encounter. For those who don't know, that's a part of the Pit of Heresy dungeon. They fixed an issue where players could die when transitioning from the Necropolis encounter to the Tunnels of Despair. They've improved a performance issue that could occur when chunks of land return or are removed from the Sanctified Mind encounter. They've improved performance when receiving certain investment-related messages. This could be reward acquisition, placing tributes, or interacting with obelisks. The largest impact, of course, is going to be in the tower, but it should help everywhere. And players who load into Crucible matches faster than their peers will no longer be put in a black screen. Rather, they will remain in spaceflight until all players have loaded into the match as before. Great change on that last one. I can't tell you how many times I've loaded in and been sitting at a black screen waiting for the match to fill up for what seems like forever. Glad they're making these changes. Next up, some proposed fixes are currently in development for the below items. These need to pass through rigorous testing before they'll find their way to a future edition of patch notes. And from here on out, we've got UI stuttering and frame rate drops when loading or applying mods, frame rate issues in Gambit and Gambit Prime, frame rate issues during the Sanctified Mind encounter of the Garden of Salvation raid, frame rate issues in the Pit of Heresy dungeon, specifically in the tunnel encounters. Good lord, thank you. We definitely need that change. It's kind of crazy going through there. And finally, general improvements to performance on PC when a lot of debris is on the ground. Very happy to see that we're going to be getting a performance pass sometime in the future. Hopefully this means they're looking at the weird sort of issues with stuttering that are going on with the UI while you're in menus. Not specifically when you're putting on mods, but just in menus. Especially on PC, the stuttering in menus has been absolutely crazy since Shadowkeep came out. Hopefully they get that fixed sometime soon. But that's not the end of the patch notes or pseudo patch notes that we're getting here. We're also getting a further look at the patch notes for 2.7.1. We got a sneak peek of these last week, and we're getting another sneak peek with some more changes coming this week. First up, we've got some changes coming to investment. They fixed an issue that is preventing Eris from granting her final lore entry. Thank you. They've also fixed an issue where the Green with Envy quest was not progressing for some players, and they fixed an issue where the Playing the Odds emblem was not unlocking correctly for players. This could prevent some players from fully unlocking the Dredgen title, so if you've been trying to get that, this should be fixed in the next big update. Next, they've improved Black Armory rare bounty acquisition. If you're somebody out there still trying to get your Izanagis and you're on the rare bounty step, you should be jumping for joy with this. Chances increase as you complete weekly and daily bounties, and they're guaranteed to drop from bounty completion after 5 days if completing all 801 bounties. Meaning if you do all the bounties and you still don't get one, you will be guaranteed to get it after completing everything after 5 days. Thank you, Bungie. I know a lot of people were really up in arms about that sort of thing. Next up, we've got some sandbox changes. First, they fixed an issue where the heavy-handed mod could trigger from Telesto bolts. Telesto, always breaking everything in this game. They fixed an issue where players could retain buffs from Worm God Caress, Winter's Guile, and Syntheseps even after swapping armor. We talked about this a little while back. This is that busted thing that allowed you to stack the buffs on those bits of gear and deal absolutely insane amounts of damage in PvE. And of course, equip restrictions on Worm God Caress and Winter's Guile will be lifted once this patch is shipped. We'll have a few more notes to share. Expect a full list on Tuesday when update 2.7.1 becomes available. So there we go. That is your patch note preview for patch update 2.7.1, scheduled to drop next Tuesday, January 28th, 2020. Good stuff in there. We're also getting the hard light change that we talked about last week, which I can't wait. Man, I cannot wait to try that thing out and not have my entire screen shake like I'm in an earthquake. But there we go, Guardians. That's it for the biggest bits of news contained in this week's issue of the Bungie Weekly blog, This Week at Bungie. They did have one other little note about the Bastion quest. I noticed a lot of people on our guide video were talking about not being able to complete the Bastion quest, stating that it wasn't there and available from Saint 14. And Bungie takes the time to confirm that that is tied to the Saint 14 quest line. So if you didn't get the quest from Saint 14, it means you haven't completed all of the missions that are tied to him. Once you've gotten all 3 of those missions done, recovering the past, an impossible task, and completing an impossible task, you should be able to accept the quest for Bastion. So there you go. If you're worried about that, that's the solution to it. But alright, that is it for this one, Guardians. That's it for the news, and those are my thoughts. Be sure to leave me yours down in the comment section below. How did you feel about the Corridors of Time questline? Now that you've learned a bit more about what went into creating it, what was the mindset there? Did you like that sort of community event, and would you like to see more of that kind of stuff in the future? Be sure to let us know down in the comment section below. That's it for the video. If you enjoyed, feel free to drop a like, make sure you subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest stuff we're putting out. But I'm out for now. As always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.